Good morning, Kentucky chapter, and welcome to the first meeting of 2022 for our chapter. It is my pleasure to now introduce our chapter president, Ms. Renata Simmons.
Thank you, Robbie. Good morning, everybody. Robbie, thanks for all you're always doing, taking care of our technology. I know that we're still virtual right now, but we're still thankful for that we're still able to meet in this realm. We would like to get started with our 2022 Kentucky chapter first quarter meeting. And we have a lot in store for you today. So thank you for joining with us. We hope everyone's doing well and staying safe out there. And it's so nice to have so many HR professionals. So we see our numbers going up as far as attendees. So hopefully everyone stays tuned and enjoys our exciting agenda today. We have a couple of folks today that will share with us. We look forward to hearing from our Executive Branch Ethics Commission leaders, General Counsel Stephen Pulliam and Deputy General Counsel Mina Mahanti, for some professional development. We also have Vicki Stevens, who is our Wellbeing Regional Coordinator with WebMD Health Services, and she'll be presenting a presentation on self-care is not selfish. And of course, we'll also be hosting our first quarter business meeting covering old business, new business, and conference updates, as well as any other announcements. So let's get started. Before we move on, I want to highlight a couple of announcements this morning. We have our Q&A box, the live Q&A box that we ask everyone to please use that Q&A box to leave any comments, questions you may have. Please try to refrain from using the chat feature. So try to use the Q&A box. That way we can watch that and take note of your questions to present. Also to note, today's 2-hour meeting, you will receive 2-hour training credit for participating today and for being on. You should receive 1 hour for the ethics training and 1 hour for the rest of the meeting. So just wanted to let you know those couple of announcements before we get started. All right, is everybody ready? Let's get started. I'm going to introduce to you Steve Pulliam, who is the General Counsel of the Executive Branch Ethics, and Mina Mahanti, who is the General Counsel. Steve Pulliam joined the Executive Branch Ethics Commission as General Counsel in 2021. Mr. Pulliam also has worked as Deputy Bar Counsel for the Kentucky Bar Association, where he was responsible for attorney ethics complaints and advising the Attorneys Advertising Commission. He also previously worked for the Kentucky Environmental Protection Cabinet, handling waste litigation cases as the investigator for the Legislative Research Commission Office of Education Accountability. Mr. Pulliam's first job after law school was clerking for retired Judge Roger L. Crittenden in the Franklin County Circuit Court. Mr. Pulliam graduated from the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture with a bachelor's degree in natural resource conservation and management, and then earned his Juris Doctor degree from the University of Kentucky College of Law, where he was notes editor of the Journal of Natural Resources and Environmental Law. Now, as for Mina Mahanti, who is the Deputy General Counsel, she became the Deputy General Counsel in January of 2019. She has represented the Commission in both investigations and administrative proceedings. Ms. Mahanti is a certified hearing officer and has over 25 years of legal experience. Prior to the Commission, Ms. Mahanti worked as an assistant county attorney in Madison County. Ms. Mahanti also taught at Eastern Kentucky University for the paralegal program in both full-time and adjunct professor roles. Ms. Mahanti started her legal career as an assistant public advocate, serving clients ranging from people charged as juveniles to people facing the death penalty. Ms. Mahanti served as the president and vice president for the Kentucky Association of Administrative Adjudicators since 2020. And in addition, she serves as the Apple Red Legal Aid Board as treasurer. Finally, Ms. Mahanti serves as board development chair for the Baptist Health Richmond Foundation. Ms. Mahanti, a graduate of Temple University of Law from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and she also attended the University of Cincinnati. Ms. Mahanti enjoys rooting for Cincinnati Bengals and dabbling in international cooking and watching live music. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Executive Branch Ethics Commission leaders, Steve Pulliam and Mina Mahanti. Thank you for joining us.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share my presentation here. All right, does that look like that's going?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everybody. As you were told, my name is Stephen Pulliam. I'm happy to be here with you today. Mina and I are going to talk about the Executive Branch Ethics Commission and the Ethics Code that applies to all the Executive Branch employees. The Executive Branch Ethics Commission was created in 1992. It was after a national scandal called Mop Trot. You can Google that and look all that up if you want, but it was the FBI investigating state legislators and others, and as a result, several people were convicted. So following all that, the legislature created the Legislative Ethics Commission and the Executive Branch Ethics Commission. And our commission enforces the ethics code as written and provided by the legislature. And the first step in all of that is for us to prevent violations of the code. So that's through education, training, through your help with your employees and your agencies. So we prefer to not have the violations occur. The Executive Branch Ethics Commission is comprised of a small staff. When we're fully staffed, there's only 7 or 8 people that work for the Executive Branch Ethics Commission. And then we have a 5-person commission, and they're appointed by the governor. Currently, our executive director position is vacant, and we are seeking applicants for that and hope to have that filled in the next couple months. So the Executive Branch Code of Ethics is found in Kentucky
Steve,
Revised. Yes.
it looks like your presentation has left. Can you reshare?
Yes.
Got it.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's try. All right. Just shout out if it disappears again.
Absolutely.
So the Code of Ethics is found in Kentucky Revised Statute Chapter 11A and Title 9 of the Kentucky Administrative Regulations. All those are available on the legislature's website, and you can find those on our website as well. But also, with regard to the Code of Ethics, both Governor Steve Beshear in 2008 and Governor Andy Beshear in 2020 issued executive orders requiring major management employees have mandatory ethics training. However, ordinary public servants do not have a mandatory requirement. But we always encourage people to get regular training. Typically every 4 or 5 years is good. It's a way to ensure that they're aware of the ethics code and all the provisions that apply. A lot of people know that there are guidelines they should follow and what they should and shouldn't be doing while at work, but it's great to have that refresher by going through that training. The commission also provides advice through staff opinions that you can contact our office, and we will give advice on certain issues, just one-on-one to a state employee. The commission also issues more formal advisory opinions. So if you have a question you want to get the commission's opinion on, you request that, and at their next regular meeting, they usually will be able to issue something on that. Those formal opinions are then put on our website. So we have about 29 years worth of advisory opinions that are searchable, and it's a great resource to find information on the ethics code regarding a particular topic. So once again, all that, the advice, the training, the advisory opinions, the goal of all that is for employees to ask and know what they're supposed to be doing before they act, and to get advice before any potential misconduct. But we also conduct investigations and enforcement actions. So I know we have people here from lots of different agencies and organizations. So who actually follows the Executive Branch Code of Ethics? This includes basically all employees in the executive branch of state government. Constitutional officers, those are your statewide elected officials, including the governor, treasurer, commissioner of agriculture, any of those statewide officers that run every 4 years. Also, major management personnel, also known as officers, merit and non-merit employees, full-time contract workers, and this was added in just in 2019. And this only applies to full-time, non-seasonal, non-interim employees that are contract workers. They do have to follow our ethics code, and it doesn't include when you have periodic services or services provided on an as-needed basis. Property valuation administrators are also subject to the code, and there are some corporations or quasi-governmental bodies, they have specific statutes that require them to follow the ethics code. Now, officers are considered major management personnel. They're the ones making decisions in your agency regarding hiring, firing, budget decisions, but there are also some named positions that fall in this category, and that includes your cabinet secretaries, deputy secretaries, general counsels, executive directors, commissioners, deputy commissioners. There's a list that is provided to help identify who these officers are. And while most of these people are non-merit, there are merit positions that are considered officers in the code. But there are some entities that are exempt. Specifically, the Kentucky Lottery Corporation, public universities and secondary education, superintendents, school boards, state troopers, and the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority. Although for them, they actually follow, they choose to follow that. So these are notable exceptions, and pretty much everyone else in the executive branch is covered by the Code of Ethics. So unless you're one of these few entities, your employees are subject to the code. Now, the officers that I mentioned, each year, now it's not every employee, it's just those officers, the constitutional officers and the major management. Each year they have to file a statement of financial disclosure. That first one, it has to be filed within 30 days of when they first are hired or promoted or named as acting commissioner or something. That would trigger that, and they have to file what we have called the new hire form. Then in addition to that, each year they're in that position. So each year they're in that officer role, they need to file an annual statement by April 15th of the following year. So it's much like your taxes. So right now, all of the officers, and me included, we have until April 15th to file the 2021 form. And there's more of this is available on our website if you need to get into that. Most of the officers know they need to do it. and we work with them. We have the names, we send out the information, so they shouldn't have to guess if they're in that role or not. But we usually do a pretty good job of reaching out and letting them know what they need to do. But they may approach you and say, maybe they don't feel like major management, but they fall under that requirement anyway. But if you have an employee that's not sure if that applies to them, you can contact us. We'll help you make that determination. And ultimately, if you don't submit, it can be investigated and found to be an ethics code violation. And every year we have a handful of people that are getting calls, letters, emails. We even have people here that'll be texting, like, please just get this in. You don't want to have to pay a fine for for failing to submit your form. All right. Now, back to everybody else, not just the officers, but everyone. As public servants, when your employees are making decisions for the agency, they need to be aware of these common standards of conduct. And those are found in, all of this is in Kentucky Revised Statute 11A, but this section specifically, 005, just states that they need to be independent and impartial. Decisions and policies must be made following established processes of government. Public servants should not use public office to obtain private benefits. They should promote the public's confidence in the integrity of the branch and should not engage in activities that have the potential to become a conflict of interest. So if you're hearing that a public servant in your agency may not be following these standards, you may soon realize that they're violating the ethics code. And it's the employee's responsibility to avoid the conflicts of interest issues that are described here. And the ethics code gives guidance on making that decision. We don't go into a lot of that today, but if they think they're in a position they need to maybe recuse from, then they're probably right. But the goal of all this is to prevent those conflicts which would result in a violation of the ethics code. Now, if somebody needs to look, we do provide in, I think it's 11A030, there's considerations to determine whether an employee needs to abstain. And ultimately, if they do need to abstain, they have to let the agency know and that they need to recuse. They don't have to divulge what the conflict is, just that there is a conflict and they need to abstain from making this decision or for evaluating this employee or participating in this hiring decision. They just need to let their supervisor know or whoever up the chain that's the most appropriate, and but they don't have to tell what the conflict is. And if you have a question, if you have an employee that you confront because you think they've put themselves in a situation they shouldn't be, or if an employee has asked you, do I need to recuse from this, or is this a conflict? If you're not sure, our contact information is here. Now, as I said, our executive director spot is vacant. That's who you normally would contact, but I've put my email on here, stephent.pulliam@ky.gov, and you're welcome to email me, and we will help you or help that employee go through that process of determining what's appropriate for them. So now we'll talk about what is basically the prohibited conduct that's set forth in 11A020, and this is section 1. These first items that we'll talk about, they carry a civil penalty, but later on we'll talk about some violations that would result in a civil penalty and also could be a Class D felony. So if an employee of your agency uses or attempts to use their influence in any matter which involves a substantial conflict between their personal or private interest, then they may be charged with a violation of the ethics code. This is the provision that requires public servants to recuse in those situations where there's a conflict. So if they fail to abstain, as we talked about a minute ago, then this is what they would actually be violating, this portion of the rule. Also, if an employee uses or attempts to use means to influence a public agency in derogation of the state at large, that could be a violation. That means if they're using their position to influence their agency to violate its own statutes or regulations that it is supposed to enforce. And if that's done and to hurt the Commonwealth, then they can be charged with a violation of the Ethics Code. Continuing on, it's the same statute, but moving on, Section C, using their official position or office to obtain financial gain for themselves or any members of their family. And in this case, family has a specific definition. It includes spouse, children, parents, grandparents, in-laws, step-family, and half-siblings. It does not include extended family. So aunts and uncles, nephews, nieces, cousins, they're not considered to be family for the purposes of this statute. So to give some financial gain to a family member can result in a charge of violating this portion of the Ethics Code. Also, using or attempting to use their official position to secure or create privileges, exemptions, advantages, or treatment for themselves or others in derogation of the public interest at large can lead to violation of the Ethics Code. This regulation, 9KR1:025, sets forth some examples that would violate that last section D that I just mentioned. It includes quid pro quo trade for a benefit, or using state time, equipment, personnel, or other resources for a private business purpose, political campaign purpose, or even to pursue a sexual interest. And also included would be using undue influence by soliciting or selling something to a subordinate or someone that does business with or is regulated by the agency if that benefit's over $50. So basically for that one, your managers and your supervisors shouldn't be selling stuff to subordinates because that could be causing some undue influence or coercion there on those employees. They might not want to buy the products and things that the person is selling or the raffle tickets, things of that nature. Now, I just made a reference to political campaign purposes, but now I'm just going to discuss quickly political activities. This is a pamphlet available on our website, and it was created using provisions in not just the Ethics Code, but it also has information related to the Executive Branch Employee Handbook, election law, and also campaign finance law. There's information in there that addresses what your employees can and can't do. Most of it comes from the State Employee Handbook. So if you need more specific information regarding what an employee can and can't do regarding political activity, that is likely something that would come from the Personnel Cabinet. It should be emphasized that one thing, all of the campaigning and political activities restrictions involve, whether by merit or a non-merit employee, is that it must not be done on state time or using state resources. The majority of ethics code violations regarding political activity is going to be just a clear-cut, you were doing a political activity when you were supposed to be working or by using state resources. It'd be the same thing as if they were running a business. It's not that it was political activity that causes a violation of the ethics code as much as it is they're just using state resources for a purpose it's not intended for. But the questions of non-merit or merit activities, and I know there's a question of partisan and nonpartisan, those distinctions don't make a big difference for the ethics code, but they may for the Personnel Cabinet. So you'd want to find out from the Personnel Cabinet regarding that employee handbook. And but it's a good brochure, and it is available on our website under publications. And like I said, it was done in conjunction with these other entities, Personnel Cabinet and Kentucky Registry of Election Finance, and others. Now, this second set of prohibited conduct under 11A-040 carries that civil penalty that we talked about, but also could be a Class D felony. As a public servant, your employees often come into contact with and possess confidential information. If that information is used to further their own economic interest, then they can be charged with a violation of the Ethics Code. Also, continuing on with these possible Class D felony violations, stealing state funds is prohibited. It should be pretty clear, I think, but most employees do not have access to funds. They go to work, there's no money exchanging hands, and they don't control any funds of the state. But many employees do have access. And this is serious misconduct and not just a violation of the Ethics Code. These employees are typically fired and charged with criminal conduct in addition to the Ethics Code violation. There's also a prohibition against self-dealing. A public servant shall not knowingly act as a representative for the Commonwealth or any agency in the transaction of any business or regulatory action with themselves or any business that they have a 5% stake in. So basically, this statute prevents an employee from making the decision for the agency to enter into business with themselves, the employee. The next section prevents the employee from entering into business with their own agency. So it's two different viewpoints there, but you can't bind the agency to your business, and your business can't do anything with the agency. And there are several exceptions that have been carved out, and they're all set forth in the statute. Things that kind of provide a filter there to know that this isn't really just self-dealing. You just happen to be in the agency that is that has to do business with you one way or another. Also, there is a prohibition on additional compensation. The state job, your employees, they get paid a salary, and state employees can't be paid additional money for doing that job. There are economic incentive awards that are given by agencies. And if your agency wishes to do that, you can. It just has to, for the employees, it just has to be approved ahead of time by the Executive Branch Ethics Commission. They very often do these on a case-by-case basis where someone gets an award, or they want to give someone an award that could be considered additional compensation. It's very common for those to be approved, but you need to do that ahead of time. Now we get to gifts. This is a basic rule for gifts prohibition. So if an employee comes to you, somehow they've been offered a gift, it can't be to the employee, to their spouse, or their dependent. Nobody in their family could accept that gift. And it includes anything with a value over $25. So the first thing you'd want to do is ask the employee, is the gift worth $25? If it's less, then almost regardless of the source, then that's okay, they can accept it. If it's greater than $25, then you need to ask, is the gift from a prohibited source? Is that source doing business with the agency? If that person or business has some sort of agreement for products or services to be given to the agency in exchange for funds, then they can't accept that gift that's over $25. And there's other things like if they seek grants from them or involved in litigation. Some of those are easier to determine than others. If it's somebody that's lobbying or attempting to influence the agency, sometimes your everyday employee is not going to know that information, but you could contact our office if the question comes up, and we have a list of executive branch lobbyists and agencies that they are stating that they are lobbying. And we can provide that and help answer that question if there's some confusion there. So, a gift is basically anything of value that's worth more than $25. It can be any of these things: payments, loans, subscriptions, services, anything that's worth more than $25. A gift is not anything that you are paying for. And there are some gifts that are permitted now under the Model Procurement Code in 45A-097 listed on the slide. Those are from other public entities. There's an exception for that at times. But gifts from family members as family members is okay. But an employee should be aware that, remember, aunts and uncles and cousins are not included in the definition of family for this portion of the ethics code. So if those family members have a contract with your agency, then the employee actually can accept a gift over $25 in a calendar year from those family members under the ethics code. I don't know how often that comes up, and depending on where they work in the agency, and they may not even realize that's going on. But under the provisions of the ethics code, that could be a violation. Now, if an employee does get a gift, and what should they do? They have some options. If it's a gift they cannot accept, they can return it, pay the market value of the gift, donate it to charity, or destroy it. If it's destroyed, or you just have to document that that you did that and put that in the personnel file. But there's several options here. And once again, this is an issue. If you have a question, we get these a lot. Our agency got a gift, or these few employees got a little gift card or something from this group. Is that okay? And we will look at that on a case-by-case basis and get back to you with an answer. Furthermore, employees need to know they are prohibited from, another area addressed in the code is this outside employment. So specifically, you can't accept outside employment from a person or business that does business with or is regulated by their agency unless they have approval from the appointing authority. So if it's, sometimes it's a large cabinet that has their hands in lots of different things, and the employee might work in one area and have no clue that they're actually going to get a part-time job somewhere that is actually regulated by their cabinet. But they should try to look into that and be aware that any type of outside employment, and there are forms that are required for this reason, that they can try to remedy that and get approval. And if it's obvious that it might be regulated by the cabinet or the agency, but they have nothing to do with that, and it may be appropriate for the agency to say, yes, that's fine for you to do that. All right. Also, employees need to know that they're prohibited from negotiating for future employment with a person or business that does business or is regulated by their agency, unless they first abstain in writing to their supervisor and recuse from being involved in any matters related to the prospective employer for the remainder of their employment. And it needs to be pointed out that negotiating doesn't mean the application process. You don't have to have your employees abstain when they're just submitting their resume somewhere. A lot of times they don't want to tell their supervisors and their coworkers that they're applying for this other job yet, and they don't have to under this. You can apply, interview. It's only after an employee is offered a job and there are actual discussions over start dates and salary or compensation packages. And remember, this only applies to employers that are regulated by the agency. If your employee is trying to get a job somewhere totally unrelated to anything the agency does, They don't ever have to abstain. They just, you wait until you give your notice and then you go. There are also post-employment rules, and some apply to every public servant and some apply just to officers. And we need to point out that this doesn't apply, these provisions do not apply when an employee is transitioning from state government to employment in higher education or another government entity, such as federal or local government or health departments. But all former public servants shall not act as lobbyists or represent a person or business before a state agency for 1 year from the date of termination of service in matters in which they were directly involved in the last 3 years of service. So that applies to everybody. You can't leave and become a lobbyist and lobby on any issues or matters that you worked on the last 3 years that you were there. Now, there are special rules for major management or officers. Specifically, after an officer leaves state government, they have to wait 1 year before contracting or negotiating a contract with their former agency. An officer must wait a year following termination of service. And termination of service doesn't mean they were necessarily terminated. It's just that's when they left, maybe voluntarily, maybe they were terminated. But they have to wait to accept 1 year for employment, compensation, or other economic benefit from a person or business, basically that does those dealings with the state. There is an exception, and this applies a lot of times, but an employee can return to the same business, firm, occupation, or profession in which they were involved prior to state service. And that is, I don't think that's clearly defined, but it's been recognized as a professional degree or license earned prior to state service. And if you do that, and I'll use myself as an example, as an attorney, I could go back and go and be an attorney somewhere else. The only provision that would apply then is I have to personally refrain from working on any matter in which I was directly involved. So it's no more just 3 years, it's not 3 years, and it's not anything that the agency was dealing with. It's just what was I directly involved with, and for 1 year, if I'm returning to my previous profession. And we get those questions as well. That's another good example of contacting the Executive Branch Ethics Commission for advice from staff on, I'm planning to leave this job and I want to go here and work. What are my limitations? Or I've already left state government. It's been less than 3 years or less than 1 year. How much longer do I have to wait, and what can I do in the meantime? And is this appropriate? So I was going to say we love to get those questions. Well, I wouldn't say we love to get the questions, but we love being able to educate these people so that they don't violate the ethics code. And once again, as HR administrators, it's not your responsibility to make, to check and to confirm that they're following these. These are the responsibilities of the employee. But you're the first person they're probably going to ask, how do these apply to me, and how can I navigate my new employment and stay within the code? And I'm now going to turn it over to Meena Mohanty. She's going to talk about more dealings with the Executive Branch Ethics Commission.
Good morning. So my name is Meena Mohanty, as everyone said, and I am going to talk to you a little bit about how cases progress at the Ethics Commission. And a lot of times people come into these hearings and don't really understand what's happening, or they're getting letters, and and a lot of times they'll take those on to you all as someone within their agency. So I thought I'd go through the process, talk a little bit about some of the types of cases we've handled, so that you understand what kinds of cases come here, because it can be confusing. There are different agencies that deal with different things, and Stephen went through some of the differences of what maybe needs to go to the personnel board versus what needs to come here to ethics. So, how do cases begin? How do we get cases here before the Ethics Commission? So there are a couple different ways, but the most important thing you need to know is, we're not out there going through every agency's records or anything like that. As Stephen said, we are 7 people, and we are what's considered a passive agency. So what we are doing is we are waiting for cases. Not waiting, but cases come to us. We don't go search them out. So, and that comes to us by referrals. So some referrals are done through sworn testimony. Somebody might, under oath, swear that a violation has occurred and name the person. When it's done under oath and with the penalty of perjury, then that is a case that the Ethics Commission has to investigate. Some of that is, if it's serious enough that somebody swears to it, then we're going to assume that there's enough reason to go look at it. Now, and those are really rare. We don't really have that many people come forward and swear that a violation has occurred. What usually happens is we get a referral. So if there might be an agency investigation that's already happening, and the agency will refer those cases to us. We like those referrals because if the agency refers the case to us, then we're able to share information with the agency about what's going on. Sometimes there are things that don't get referred to us that we may find through media sources in the newspaper or on TV. If we see something that's like, hey, we need to probably look into that, then we take that matter to the commission. And what the commission is looking for is to see if there's probable cause. And that just means it's more likely than not that something happened. And if there's probable cause, at that point, the commission says, hey, it's time to open a preliminary investigation. Everything up to this point that has been provided to the commission from either the agency or from somebody walking in and reporting a violation to calling in, all of those things are still confidential at this point. So until there is an actual charge, everything that happens at the commission is confidential. I'll talk about that a little more in the next slide. So once that probable cause has been determined, the next step is a preliminary investigation. So at a closed commission meeting, in closed session, they will decide that we are going to open an investigation on a certain case. If that happens, within 10 days, the alleged violator will receive a letter from the commission basically saying an allegation has been made against you. And that's it. It'll tell them the basis of the investigation, but it doesn't go out publicly. It's not part of our open session that someone could watch that happen. We don't send a press release on that at that moment, because at that point, it's still just an allegation. We do ask if the agency isn't the one who referred it initially, that the agency go ahead and refer it at that point so we can have that communication. But again, everything is still confidential at that point. If anyone contacted the commission and said, hey, I heard this, that you all are looking into this case, we could not confirm or deny anything. It is confidential. Now, if a violation is happening within the agency, then of course, we do need to look at what's going on and talk to people within the agency. And before we start talking to those witnesses, we do have them sign a confidentiality agreement. So that is something that somebody may come to HR and say, hey, I got this, and how does it work? And so there is a duty to cooperate with us. And so in any time that they come to us for doing witness interviews or any of that time for travel, that is considered state time. And so they may have a question about that when they come to HR, but all of that is considered state time. Now, if we look into an allegation that we think we need to share with the other agencies, there is a statute that does allow for us to share information with the auditor, the personnel board, or law enforcement if we think that is something that needs to be investigated by a different agency besides us. You know, a lot of times you'll hear people will send things to ethics saying that it's morally wrong or something's going on or they think it's unethical. And that's a very broad, vague term. But what we enforce is KRS 11A. So unless it actually fits our statute, as Stephen discussed, if it doesn't fit the statute, then it's probably someone else, either the finance cabinet or personnel or law enforcement, that needs to look into it. So we may refer those cases. And, you know, so another thing that might come up if somebody doesn't really want to cooperate with what's going on or feels like, you know, well, my stuff's confidential too, the commission does have subpoena power. So somebody may come to you and say, hey, I got a subpoena. And we do have the subpoena power in order to enforce gathering information or talking to witnesses. So once the preliminary investigation is completed, well, the next step is we take it back to the commission, the staff here, and the commission, I don't know if we talked about, it's made up of commission members. At this, right now, there are 5 people appointed, some appointed by the governor's office, the auditor, and the attorney general. And so they hear the case of what we found, and it's one-sided because it's just our investigation. This is not the trial at this point. So they hear the evidence that we've kind of collected, the witnesses we've talked to, and then they decide whether or not that probable cause standard has been met. If it has been met, then they have some options. So they could say, well, first, if there's no probable cause, we're terminating the investigation. And if it's terminated, then we do send a letter to the person. We sent them the letter to start the investigation, to let them know, to notify them, and we send them a letter saying, hey, it's been terminated. You know, you don't need to worry about this anymore. But if they do find that probable cause exists, then they still have some options. In our investigation, if we find a lot of mitigating factors, like maybe it wasn't clear that they weren't supposed to do a certain thing, but you know it wasn't right, but it may not have been clear. There may have been some gray area. So the commission can issue what's called a confidential reprimand. So a confidential reprimand still stays confidential. It's not discoverable by the public. We don't do a press release on it, but it does go back to the agency. So what happens is we get a letter drafted, it goes to the alleged violator, and it also goes back to the respective agency. So if the commission finds that there aren't any mitigating circumstances, how do I go back, Stephen? Oh, wait, I found it. Okay, so if they find that there weren't any mitigating circumstances, I'm not sure why it's automatically switching. How do I hold it there? Okay, I'm not sure why the slide is doing this, so I'm just going to go. So you'll get the slide in a separate presentation, but I'll just talk about it. So if you get to the point where there is an administrative proceeding, it's basically like a trial, but it's with an administrative hearing officer. And so the way it's set out is we follow the rules of 13B, which is the administrative hearing procedure for the state of Kentucky. So there's a hearing officer, and each side gets to present their witnesses. And if there is the alleged violator can be represented by counsel, or they can choose to represent themselves. They still have subpoena power to bring any witnesses or evidence forward before the hearing officer. And then, of course, the prosecution is done by the staff of the commission. All the evidence is put forward in front of the hearing officer, and a record is created of all of those things. And that record is then, the hearing officer then issues a recommendation. They don't have the final decision. They issue a recommendation that is sent to the Executive Branch Ethics Commission. The commission itself is the final arbitrator or judge of what happens in the case. So they'll look at all the evidence and they'll come out with the final order of whether or not the violation has occurred. And after they issue that, then the case can be appealed on to circuit court. So So if it is found that you have violated and actually committed a violation, well, if something has happened that influenced state action, like if you were negotiating a contract and then the state decided to enter into the contract, which may have been influenced by someone in a way that violated the ethics code, well, anything that bound the state would then be found to not bind the state anymore. So it would void any contract. The state could rescind that contract or cancel it. And, you know, when there are violations of that, one of the other things that could happen as a consequence of this investigation and administrative hearing is the commission it's a directive to us that we shall refer those cases on to the Attorney General for prosecution, and it would be a Class D felony. So, you know, some of the examples that we see come through the commission, a lot of times, you know, when we say the executive branch, you're talking about everything from the governor's office on down. And a lot of the cases that you might see in your position are, you know, are people fraudulently filing a travel voucher? Their timesheets, are they not being truthful on a timesheet? Are they using state resources inappropriately? And that can include something like, you know, a license that has been purchased for your agency that's supposed to be used to make your state job easier, like for research or, you know, editing, or depending on what agency you're in, Westlaw. Any of those things that were used and purchased for your state job, you're not supposed to use for your private business. You know, if the state provided you a cell phone, you shouldn't be using your cell phone other than for state business unless you have permission. You know, you also have, you know, we all have access to copiers and printers. You know, should you be using those resources for your own private, you know, recipe book or, you know, anything like that? Now, you know, there is a de minimis rule, but if you think about how many state employees we have, if each person is printing out 20 pages a day, well, I mean, it adds up very quickly to, you know, tens of thousands of pages. You know, a lot of people ask about inappropriate relationships. Now, all we look at is it happening on state time? We're not concerned with the dating life, but, you know, as long as it's not happening on state time or state property, then you probably don't need to refer it to us. But so those are some of the types of cases. As Stephen has said a couple times, if you have any doubt or you're not sure, we do. You can call us. We give advice on the phone. You can email us. We will answer that. If you feel like it's something that needs a formal advisory opinion, you can issue that to us in writing, and we can take it in front of the full commission, and you can get a published opinion if you're concerned that you're about to engage in something that might be a violation. But other than that, our door is always open. We take walk-ins. Feel free to call us or contact us. As Stephen said, we don't have an executive director at this point, but Stephen is the general counsel and I'm deputy general counsel, and we're here to help. And we prefer to be preventative prevent the violations rather than react to them. So, Stephen, did you have anything else? I think that's all we have for today.
Thank you. If you can hang on just a second, we do want to review some of our comments and questions. First, from Commissioner Bailey. She just wanted to clarify a statement made at the beginning of the presentation that all executive branch employees, regardless of status, are required to complete the executive branch ethics overview training upon hire.
The online.
They do an online portion, and I think that's required actually by the personnel cabinet.
Yes.
As part of that onboarding. Yes, they would do that.
Absolutely. And then our next question on outside employment: do employees need approval for any outside job or just a job that may be a conflict? If an employee fails to submit a form and get approval, is this something that an agency needs to refer to the Ethics Commission?
Okay, so the way the code is written, it doesn't really include forms and things of that nature, other than you could get permission from your appointing authority. But those forms are actually, once again, part of the personnel cabinet's requirements, which I think are great that they have that. But if the employee just goes out and gets a job, my understanding is you can have outside employment as long as it doesn't violate our ethics code, and we would be okay with it. But if they fail to submit that outside employment form, which is required for them to have their job, that could be an issue with their, but I don't think you would report it to us unless it had that conflict element in it.
Okay, thank you. We'll give a little time for anyone else to submit any questions while we still have Stephen and Mina online.
Yeah, and as Mina said, they can call us, and we have they can leave a voicemail. We'll get it carrier pigeon, however they want to send us a question. We'll get them a response.
Okay, very good. And just to follow up on some of these conversations too, employees need to follow their agency directive, and you can ask their HR departments or your supervisors there as well. Any more questions? As I'm waiting to see if anything comes in, thank you all so much, and we'll turn it back over to Renata, our chapter president.
Thank you again, Mr. Pulliam and
you.
Mr. Hunty, for speaking with us. We greatly appreciate you sharing this information with us. It's always good to, be given the history and the importance of the process of the Code of Ethics. Of course, in our world of HR, we're appreciative of you kind of giving us new information and or reminding us that's been here for a while about the importance of Code of Ethics, and we just want to thank you for sharing with us today. We also have a token appreciation that we'd like to give you a little something for speaking with us today, so just be on the lookout for that. We'll get you something. Are there any other questions? I don't see any more. Again, we appreciate you, and just so everyone knows, today's virtual meeting will be made available online on our Kentucky chapter IPMA-HR website. So even if you missed part of it or you'd like to go back and hear some more of it, Feel free to always go back to our website once Robbie gets that posted. There's also all of our past virtual meetings are on there as well. So feel free to go back to the website to look at our live recorded sessions. Again, thank you, Mina and Stephen, and you all have a great day, and we will move on if we have no other questions for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now we move on to our next presenter. I'll introduce Ms. Vicki Stevens, who is the Regional Wellbeing Coordinator with the Living Well program through WebMD Health Services and is genuinely passionate about employee well-being. She holds a master's degree in educational and counseling psychology and is a certified organizational development professional. She is also a certified predictive index and the Myers-Briggs type indicator. She is certified trainer through the Development Dimension International and holds a Wellness Council of America facility designation. And in her former role, she built a wellness program from the ground up at her organization in 4 short years and led her organization in winning the coveted Healthiest Employer of Greater Louisville. In her role as the Regional Wellbeing Coordinator for the Commonwealth of Kentucky, she partners with Living Well Champions and HR staff to create a culture of well-being at work sites across the state. So some of you all may already know of Vicki Stevens, or I'm introducing her to you now, but she is here to give us an awesome presentation today. So thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Renata. Yeah, I'm excited to be talking to you today about self-care. And I hope that it is something that's going to resonate with you, that you are spending time on yourself today. Give me just a sec and let me find my presentation. There we go. All right. So I am sharing when anybody's ready to switch it over.
You're good to go. Thanks, Vicki.
All right, so everybody can see it?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So as Renata said, my name is Vicki Stevens, and I am one of 5 regional wellbeing coordinators throughout the state. My region is the East Central region. So I saw some of the names on this presentation, and they are some of the folks that I work with. So I'm excited to see you on this call, and I appreciate being invited to speak today. So the topic is self-care, and it's an important topic. Because I know the work that you do can be somewhat intense at times, and that intensity can up the stress level. And so I want you to take this opportunity to really look at whether you're taking every opportunity that's available to you to take care of your mind and your body. So before we begin, though, I do want to say that this information in this presentation is for general well-being purposes and not intended as specific medical advice. If you have questions about your health or the health of anyone close to you, please connect with your healthcare provider or doctor. So we're going to be spending the next 45 minutes or so focusing on you and your self-care. And I want you to think about that for just a second. So pause at that thought. 45 minutes are going to be spent on you and your self-care. And then you're going to be able to take this information and take action upon it after the session today. And I hope that that feels good to you. And I hope that today is the beginning of you spending more time on your own self-care. So logically speaking, we know that self-care is good for us. In our minds, we know that. It improves our emotional and physical health. It builds resilience. But on an emotional level, we can let ourselves fall into the false idea that when we spend time on ourselves, that we're somehow being selfish or indulgent. And self-care is a practice that's beneficial to more than just ourselves. It spans outside of the radius of ourselves. And it paves the way for compassion for not only ourselves, but also compassion that we can extend to the people around us. So let's start with the airplane analogy. So I was telling Renata that I actually flew to Florida this morning, and I heard the flight attendant say those things that we're so familiar with, and that in the event of a loss of cabin pressure, we're to put our own oxygen mask on before helping others. And the importance of this is clear when we're flying on an airplane. But using this metaphor for self-care in an emergency is not necessarily how I want you to look at self-care. It's not advisable because if we waited for an extreme emergency to start implementing self-care, we'd probably start experiencing burnout, have autoimmune issues, develop cancer, be overweight, be depressed, be anxious, be in pain. But let's pause there for a minute too, because all of those things are already happening. So we don't want to wait until we're in an emergency situation before we put our own masks on. So let's look at another analogy. So would we expect our car to run continuously for 5,000 miles without ever stopping to get gas or to have the oil changed? Of course we wouldn't. So why do we expect our bodies and minds to go so far without time and attention? We need to realize that running on empty eventually leads to a machine that no longer functions. One last analogy that I want to talk about is the empty cup. So we're thirsty. Metaphorically or literally, we may be thirsty for quality sleep. We may be thirsty for quality time with friends and family, but by the time that we notice that we're parched, then we're at the point where we go to our cup and that cup may be empty. And so we've got to decide at that point, are we going to refill that cup or are we going to continue to go without quenching that thirst? So let's do a mental self-check on the tread of our tires or the state of our engines. Are our tires bald and in need of replacement? Or let's take a moment and bend our heads down as I have right in front of me. I've got a coffee cup and I'm looking down at it and I'm seeing whether maybe my coffee cup needs to be refilled. I want you to begin thinking about when you're going to allow yourself to take your car in for repair or allow yourself the time to find a practice that's going to pour into that empty vessel, into that empty cup. So I want you to be thinking about that as this presentation progresses. So Jean Boland is a speaker, author, and renowned psychologist. And she said, when you discover something that nourishes your soul and brings you joy, care enough about yourself to make room for it in your life. So I want us to have an interactive part of our session right now. So I want you to type in the question field, some things that nourish your soul. I want you to tell me things that bring you joy. And let's see if there are ones that we share and have in common with each other. And there might be a little bit of a lag while our moderator approves the things that we're typing in. So let's give us a moment as they start to come through, and then I'll read them out for us. Make sure to type in that Q&A field for me. All right, we have spending time with grandkids. Absolutely. Makes us young again, doesn't it? Let's hear about some other things that nourish our soul and bring us joy. Yeah, 3-day weekends. Yes, absolutely they do. When I flew this morning, I flew to Florida, and beaches are my happy place. So that's something that nourishes my soul and brings me joy. Crafts, absolutely. Going to Zumba and pound exercise. Grandchildren. When my employees or leaders tell me I'm doing a great job and that they appreciate what I do, yes, that kind of positive reinforcement and feedback is really important to filling us back up. Our family, our faith, animals, family time, a good book, coffee and sleep. Yes, absolutely. Taking a walk, travel, watching BBC shows. Yes, the show Ghosts is super funny. Reading a good book, traveling, doing something for others without fanfare and seeing their reaction. Yes, just for the sheer point of doing something kind and generous for someone else. Gardening, traveling, having a girls' day with mom, daughters, and sisters. Those are really fun. Walking, taking vacation. My mama with an exclamation point. I would hope that my children would type that in too. And grandkids of gardening. Thank you so much for sharing those. So I want you to hold on to those because we're going to be bringing those things back up a little bit later in the presentation. So we're going to talk about 15 concrete ways that you can practice self-care that are free, every single one of them. And what I'd like for you to do is grab a pen and paper. Anything that's near you, you can even open up the app, the Notes app on your phone, and type it in that way. But as I talk about these 15 different things, I want you to write down numbers of the self-care practice that corresponds with that number that resonates with you, because we're going to be using those a little bit later too. All right, so let's start with find your flow. Do you ever become so absorbed in a hobby, like crafts was one of the examples, that you lose track of time? It's actually a good thing when that happens. Whether you knit, write sci-fi, you garden, that was some examples too, or work on your car, you should spend time on things that keep your full interest. When you're in the zone, your mind doesn't churn, you feel more sure of yourself, and you aren't as afraid of taking risks. Make time to do what you love, and you'll also give your life more meaning. Stare at a screen for hours, and you're absolutely going to miss what's going on in real life. Make it a priority to unplug and fully connect with your loved ones in person. This also allows your brain to slow down so you can better focus. It makes you calmer and lifts your mood. It can take a lot of practice to do this, to put your phone down and your laptop away. But try to do it a little more often than you do right now, and especially do it when you're with family and friends so that they have your full attention. And then there's toxic people, and those are folks that can really leave us drained and less sure of ourselves. And after spending time with them, it's easy to feel tired and frustrated. If you have a friendship with someone like that, give yourself permission to rethink that friendship. We all need true friends in our lives, so look for ones that offer support and comfort and make you feel happy and not drained. Massage. So massage can do more than ease sore muscles and help manage pain. Massage also helps to ease stress, anxiety, feelings of depression. Studies show that massage can even lower your heart rate and blood pressure. I know massages can be expensive, so you don't have to go to a spa. Massage schools and community health fairs offer low-cost options. Going green. So no matter your age or where you live, going green by being outdoors can help you feel more calm and more balanced. Studies show that time spent in nature also lessens pain, improves your focus, and helps you better connect with others. If you can't get out as much as you'd like, especially in this weather, I know the weather isn't great in Kentucky today, sit next to a window, look at nature photos, or buy some plants and spend some time around living, breathing greenery. So getting more shut-eye, that's number 6. So going to bed early can feel like a splurge when you have so much to do, but it's not. Your body and your brain need restorative sleep to be at their best. That quality shut-eye you get helps you to think clearly, to be alert, and to handle stress. It also helps manage your immune system, your heart, your hormones, and weight. Aim for a minimum of 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night. And something I want you to think about when it comes to getting better sleep is about your behavior and your environment. So what is under your control that you can change that's going to improve the quality of your sleep? Is it disconnecting from a device an hour or two before bed? Is it having a glass of wine with dinner, but not close to bedtime? Is it making sure that your room is dark and the temperature that allows you to sleep well? Are your sheets comfortable? Is your pillow supportive? Think about all of those things, and anything that you can change to improve your quality of sleep. Try at least 1 or 2 of them tonight and see if it makes a difference. If you tend to feel spaced out or feel stuck when you're stressed, getting up and moving can get you back in the zone. Turn on your favorite playlist and dance in your living room, or put some headphones on and take your music with you on a brisk walk around the block. Rhythmic movements get you out of your head and into the present moment so that you're ready for the next challenge. And then number 8 is giving back. Giving back to the community, like walking dogs at a local shelter, picking up trash in a park, bringing a meal to a sick neighbor. When you donate your time and energy to another person or to a cause that you believe in, you forge a connection with the world. You boost your self-esteem, and you're building a social network and a social community for yourself. There are studies that show the more you volunteer, the less you focus on your own issues, and the happier you become. So number 9, seek out happy people. So it sounds funny to say, but you can catch others' emotions just like you would a cold. So seeking out happy people, like those with a cheerful, positive outlook on life, even when they face challenges, is a healthier virus to catch. Absorb more happiness, and in turn, you can pass it on to someone else. Planning a getaway. So the next time you have days off from work, plan a getaway and head out of town. It doesn't have to be somewhere far away or fancy. The best trips are the ones that are most relaxed and the less planned. Some research shows that simply planning the trip can be a mood booster because it's fun to give ourselves something to look forward to. Stop for a moment and tap into your thankfulness and take stock of what you're grateful for. It helps you notice that even when things are hard, there's still good in the world, and some of it has come your way. It may also distract you from other less pleasant feelings like comparison or envy. Jotting down your thoughts and feelings on paper can make them easier to deal with. A journal can help you see which of your worries or fears either aren't such a big deal or ones that may need more concentration. And they give you a chance to work through them, to break the habit of negative self-talk. So keep a paper and pen handy every day with you and try to write down something every day or type it in your phone. And remember that that journal is just for you. So let your true feelings flow. It can be free association. It can be a sentence without punctuation. The point is for you to get it from your head and onto paper so that you can start to release it. Your home won't feel as cozy as it should if it's filled with too much stuff. So think about simplifying. We've heard of Marie Kondo, and she definitely tells us that clutter can make us discontent with where we live or how we feel about ourselves. It can even prevent you from getting a good night's sleep. So little by little, chip away at what you don't need or want anymore. And I think you'll find that the more that you give away, especially to a charity, the less burdened your life feels and you start to feel lighter. So 14 is feeding our spirit. So people tend to feed their spirit. Those people are less apt to worry and feel sad. For some reason that means prayer and worship services. But for others, it can mean meditating every morning, or it can be doing a specific exercise that feeds your spirit. But either way, the result can be that you're better equipped to handle stress. And then seeking help when you need it. Sorry about that. When a big problem hits, don't pretend that nothing's wrong. Seek help by speaking to a counselor in private or check out a support group. It helps to get a different view of your situation so that you can make your best choices. Although your problem probably won't vanish right away, it will help to get it off of your chest. So after covering all 15 of these possible self-care practices, the point that I want to get across to you today is just start with one. Don't feel like you need to incorporate all 15 or even half of them. So what I'm hoping is that as you went by, as we went through those 15 items, you wrote down one or more that resonated with you. So what I'd like for you to do in the Q&A feature is I want you to put in the number, and you can do your top one, you can do your top three. If you do your top three, you can do 1, 2, 3, or you can do them in separate entries. But I want to see if we have a theme, if there's some common interests or certain of the self-care opportunities resonated with the group as opposed to individuals. So type in that Q&A and let's see what we find. All right, is everybody typing in there? All right, so we've got 14, 11, and 4. We'll see if we have a trend going. 5, 6, and 7. Okay, all different so far. $14 and $11. Okay, so we've got some commonality with 14 and 11. Share a few more. 5, 7, and 13. Okay, so right now we've got 14, 11, and 5 are some commonalities. 10, 1, and 8. 4, 7, and 11. So I'm going to circle back and I'm going to let you see what these are. Got 4, 5, 11, and 14. So 11 comes across multiple times, 14 comes across multiple times, 5 comes across multiple times. So let's look what 5, 11, and 14. So we've got going green. Okay, so being outside is something that resonated with multiple people. And then tapping into thankfulness. Yes, gratitude is really powerful. And then feeding your spirit. Yes. Yes. It's important to think about whether meditation or prayer or attending worship service or giving to others, whatever it looks like to feed your spirit, that you're taking time to do that. Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. All right. So now that you've written down at least one of the 15 ways to practice self-care, we're going to put that into practice and we're going to put it into action, and we're going to create some self-accountability by building a cup check plan. So when we talk about that empty cup and it needing to be refilled, we're going to need to be intentional about looking at our cup and seeing if it needs to be refilled. So the first step in our cup check plan is to begin with the example we gave earlier of things that nourish our soul and bring us joy. So I'm going to circle back and just mention a few of those. So being around people now, yes, that's wonderful to be in closer proximity to humans again. Cooking, being with family, being outside, vacations, music, travel, time with hubby, crafting, grandkids, vacation, taking walks. So those were some of the examples of things that nourished your soul and that brings you joy. So make a list, actually write it down of those things and try to think of examples that represent all areas of our lives. So our work life, our emotional life, our relationships, and our physical fitness. Next, I want you to take one of those self-care practices, whichever one out of the three that you gave as an example, and agree to implement that this week. So I want you to consider that to be the starting point of your self-care roadmap. Next, let's figure out where our potential stumbling blocks may be. What might be a barrier to introducing a new self-care practice and incorporating more things that bring you joy? How are you going to overcome those barriers? For many of us, one barrier that's common is negative self-talk. And if that's you, to overcome that barrier, shift your thinking. Every time you catch yourself saying something negative to yourself, turn around, shift it, and say the exact opposite to yourself. More than likely, it's what you would say to someone else. So pretend like you're that someone else and say the positive thing, the encouraging thing, the uplifting thing, rather than the negative. The third step is where accountability comes in. Share your list of things that bring you joy and which self-care practice you've agreed to implement with your friends and loved ones. Give them something to ask about next time they see you. Let them gently nudge you towards if you aren't engaging here. So now I'm going to focus on the self-care opportunities that are in the WebMD1 portal. So there are interest areas that when you first log in, where that blue arrow is showing, those are areas that you indicated when you completed the introductory questions, which could have been this year, but it also could have been last year. So there may be a change in what you're interested in. If you want to customize your portal experience or update your portal experience, in that line, I want you to find the edit feature. So if you have multiple, like I do, you may have to scroll to the right to find that edit button. But when you click on the edit button, you see what's on the right side of my screen. There are two that have to do with self-care, and that's sleep and stress. So we're going to start with stress. And when you click those interest areas, if you scroll down near the bottom on your home page, you're going to see that say because fill in the blank matters to you. And it's whatever health area you indicated that you were interested in. So if you go back in and you click on sleep and stress, then they're going to show up and you're going to see because stress matters to you and because sleep matters to you. So I've highlighted the ones that specifically relate to stress, and we're going to go through each one. So the first one is the Learn to Stress Less tile, and there's going to be articles, news, and self-assessments for you to take that relate to stress. In the Manage Your Mood tile, there are trackers. So there's a sleep tracker, a stress tracker, and a mood tracker. And the value in that is you would slide this dial between sad to happy, and you would do this every day. And let's say that you do that for a month, then you're going to start to see trend data. And if you start to see your mood going up towards happy, think about what in your life is happening. Are you doing self-care more than you were in the past? Are you doing those things that nourish your soul and bring you joy? And so you might see an upturn in the trend data. But let's say the opposite's happening. Let's say you start to see a negative trend data, more towards the sad. Think about what's happening. Have you experienced something that's difficult? A death of someone in your life, or a particularly stressful time at work? And then think about what that trend data is telling you, which could be you need to spend more time taking care of yourself to balance out those sad moments. And then there's the keep stress in check tile, and that's also a tracker. And so you would mark on the continuum where you are in terms of your stress level. And then with the same thing with the mood tracker, you would start to see trend data. And from that, analyzing that data, you can take different action steps that can help you to keep your stress in check. And then there's the stress tile. So the stress tile directs you to our daily habits. And in the daily habits plans, if you're not familiar with those typically last 28 days, although there are some that last more. And they usually with like a chronic health condition like hypertension or COPD, or you know, losing weight, or that's about you. But there's lots that have to do with your mental, emotional, and social stress in check plan. So you'll see that it will show the timeline of the daily habits plan. It'll tell you how it works, what kind of questions they'll ask you. And if you click on Start Plan, then that plan will begin from that day. And you would go into the app every day and answer the questions. So let's say that you have a day where your stress level is high and you have to respond no to some of the questions. That's okay. The point of these daily habit plans are to get you geared towards the things that are going to help with this area. And it's just a reminder to do those things in the form of a question, as opposed to trying to remember to do it. You do have to go in every day. If you miss more than 3, it's going to ask you to restart the plan. And in the portal, you get $25 for completing a daily habits plan, and you can do up to 2 a year. So my recommendation, if I could give you a tip, would be to do 2 at one time. That way, instead of going into the app every single day for 2 months, you're going into the app every day for 1 month, and you're getting 2 daily habits done. So maybe look to see if there's another one that might be helpful. And we're going to go over some that have to do with stress and sleep. So you might find 2 that you find interesting enough to start. So another one of those is Cope with the Blues plan. So think about whether it might be helpful to have reminders on what you can be doing to counteract some of those feelings that bring us down. We also have a mental health podcast tile. With that tile, you would choose Tune In is where you would click, and then it will redirect you to the Beyond Well site. And I did a screenshot, but there are actually over 50 different podcasts that you can listen to, and they range from 2 minutes long to 11 minutes long. And they're a great way to start your day, or if you take a break from your work, go in and take 2 to 11 minutes to listen to a podcast that's going to rejuvenate you or give you information that may be helpful. Or you can even end your day, like the last 10 minutes of your day. You can use that as a transition from work to home. There's also a work-life balance tile, and you would click Get Started. And then that's going to take you to another daily habits plan on work-life balance. And I know for a lot of us, especially in HR, there are issues that come at us at all hours of the day. And so it can create a sense of misbalance. You know, we're starting to answer emails at work, we're answering, or I'm sorry, at home. We're taking phone calls at home. We're checking it at dinner because, you know, there may be a crisis situation. But we need to be careful that we're not tipping the scale in the other direction for too long of a time period. And I want you to think of that work-life balance. Rarely is it ever balanced, you know, totally in sync with each other. So work is here, life is here. It's going to tilt in one direction on a constant basis. But the trick is to not let the scales tip high in one direction or really low in another direction, or to have them tip in an opposite direction, an unbalanced direction for too long of a time period. And this daily habits plan can be a way to help you to do that. We also have wellness videos. And if you click on the start watching, then it's going to direct you to Coaching University. And you're going to find just about any kind of video you can think of. We've got recipes, we've got exercise tips, we've got information on health conditions and diseases, and anything that you can think of. And they're short. And so, and some of them you can even do sitting at your desk, or you can log in when you get home and do some stretching, especially if you had to sit in your desk for a long period of time during the day. And then an additional daily habits plan is called Stay Connected. So when you think of mental, emotional, and social health, especially since someone had mentioned finally getting to be around people, that physical distancing also led us to feel socially distanced. We didn't feel close to people. And there's something from a chemical standpoint that happens to us when we're in community with other people. And so this plan helps you to take steps to keep you connected and to keep you from being isolated. All right, so now we're going to talk about sleep. In the Because Sleep Matters to You, you can see that there are 3 tiles that are specific to sleep. And we're going to start with the Study Up on Sleep tile. So similar to stress tile, it's going to have news, articles, and self-assessments to see how quality your sleep actually is. And there's a tracker so that you can evaluate your sleep habits. Also, if you have a fitness device and it tracks your sleep, try it for a week and see if the data that it gives you helps you to create some kind of an understanding of what your sleep looks like and what action steps you can take in your behavior or your environment to improve it to where you're getting that 8 hours of sleep every night. There's also a daily habits plan. There's about 20 plans altogether. I know you've seen a lot of them so far, but the sleep plan is really great. I did that one and exercise last year, and I really enjoyed it. So I want you to cast off the misnomer that self-care is selfish, that it's indulgent, that it's something that you should not be doing, that you need to be focusing on other people rather than yourself. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't focus on other people, but you need to include yourself in there too. So remember to check your tires, see if the tread depth needs some attention. Maybe you need to replace a tire. Maybe you need to refill your cup. And think about that self-care practice and those things that nourish your soul and bring you joy that can help be your partner in doing that. All right. So I hope that you found something in there that you can grab onto, that you can actually practice. I want you to start it today. I want you to think about your sleep tonight. I want you to think about your stress throughout the day. You know, you've been in a 2-hour meeting, and that means there's stuff you haven't been able to get to. You have email that's waiting for you, and it might stress you out when you go back to the meeting and look at that. But I would challenge you to not let that stress you out, and to really think about what you're going to implement when it comes to your own self-care and be a good role model for others to implement that as well. So we've got 3 prizes that we're going to give away today, and we have a spinning wheel of names that's going to tell us who our winners are. So we're going to pull that up. All right, so click to spin. Let's see who our first winner is. All right, John, you're a winner. All right, we've got 2 more prizes. Let's do another spin of that wheel. Yay. All right, we've got 1 more. Cross your fingers that your name comes up. Awesome. Congratulations, Shauna. All right, so Shauna, you have won a t-shirt that says self-care is not selfish, and I want you to wear that proudly, my friend. Larry, you have won a stainless steel Living Well water bottle. Go you. And then John, you have won a Living Well black knit beanie. So congratulations to all 3 of you.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you, Miss Stevens, for that. That was fun. I promise you guys, Larry, he just has some type of I don't know what he has on him, because I promise you nothing's rigged, but I can't see how Larry keeps winning all the time. I'm sorry. No, but thank you again, Ms. Stevens, for speaking with us. We appreciate you presenting this awesome topic today. Self-care isn't selfish. It's very important right now. The past couple of years going through this COVID and just so much right now, we have all had to really dig down on ourselves and take a look at ourselves and what life has put before us. Thank you for the self-care tips and for the resources through the WebMD portals. My favorites, I love the wellness videos. Of course, I think at some point in our HR career, we all have felt bad at some point for not being able to take care of everybody else because we're down ourselves. But I've certainly learned in the past couple of years that, it's important to take care of you, because if you're not mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically in good health, you will not have enough in your cup to pour into somebody else's cup. So I'm thankful for my leadership, who always tells me it's okay, take time for yourself, because it's truly important, especially in our world of HR and especially during times right now. And so again, thank you. And as a token of our appreciation, we'll have a little something for you. All right, do we have any questions or any comments in our Q&A box?
No, we are good to go, Renata.
Thank you, Vicki.
Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move forward to our Kentucky IPMA-HR first quarter business meeting. Hopefully everyone stays tuned so that you can get your full 2 hours of training credit. But we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And we will start off with our our old business with Michelle Barnes, who is our secretary, and she'll present our minutes from our last meeting.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Renata. Everyone should have received the minutes this morning for your review. It was on the same email with the invite or the link for this meeting. So we'll start going through those minutes. And if you're not getting invites from me, if people are forwarding those to you, please let me know and I'll be sure to add you to our mailing list, okay? So to start the minutes, the Kentucky chapter IPMA-HR held the 2021 winter business meeting on Thursday, December 9th, 2021 virtually via Microsoft Teams. President Renata Simmons called the meeting to order. She called for review of the minutes. She called for review of the treasurer's report. Under new business, there was a holiday charity spotlight for 2021, Believing in Forever. She, is it Devon Karma? Devon Karma. Is the president and founder of the charity. He spoke with us, spoke with the chapter. He went over their initiatives, Poetry in Motion, Black Women in Kentucky, Sons of Single Mothers, and community services programs such as coat drives and the cleanup efforts. The chapter donated $200. Chapter dues, remember that our chapters come in strength from membership. I encourage chapter members to share your ideas for future meetings. We're always looking for new ideas. Please feel free to reach out to someone on the board. And sorry, that was my personal insert in there. Renata led the holiday interactive games, awarded door prizes. She announced that the next meeting would include a presentation by the Ethics Commission. And the Southern Region Conference will now be held in Baton Rouge in either May or June. Renata adjourned the meeting. Thank you, Renata.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any corrections to the minutes as read from anyone? Do we have a motion to accept the reading of the secretary's minutes?
I move to accept.
Thank you, Robbie. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Larry. So the motion has been moved and seconded to accept the secretary's minutes. Thank you, Michelle. All right, and now we'll have our treasurer's report by our treasurer, Rebecca Ogden.
Thank you, Renata. Hello, everyone. Like Michelle said, you should have received a copy of the treasurer's report in the email this morning that she sent out. Our beginning balance as of December 9th, which was the date of our winter meeting, was $13,487.81. We had expenditures of $1,118.86, which included, of course, our donation to Believing in Forever, which was our spotlight charity. We also, as a board, voted to contribute to the Western Kentucky Relief Fund by giving $25 gift cards to the First Lady's toy fund, I think is what it was. We had deposits of $141.40, and those were from memberships. For our balance as of this morning is $12,510.35. Thank you, Renata.
Thank you, Rebecca. Are there any corrections to the treasurer's report? Anybody has? And do we have a motion to accept? I'm sorry, what did you say, Robbie?
I move to accept.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Coverdale. All right, the motion has been moved and seconded to accept the the treasurer's report. So thank you, ladies, both. And now we will move on to our new business. All right, make sure we don't have any other questions or things in the chat box. We don't see anything, Robbie?
No.
All right, so again, right before we jump into our new business, I just wanted to share a couple reminders again. Be sure to, stay on what you will get training credit for this training. And today's recording will be recorded online on our website. And again, like Michelle has said earlier, the strength of our chapter comes from active participation and inclusion of our members. And active members make valuable contributions to the success of our Kentucky chapter. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Grover Dale Clemens, who is our current president-elect and upcoming 2022-2023 president for he will give us the 2022 annual conference updates and additional ways that you can select to serve in our chapter.
Thank you, Renata. So this year's annual conference will be virtual with 2 half days. Dates are June 1st and 2nd. So please mark your calendars appropriately, and additional information on our annual conference will follow. Michelle will be sending out information on our annual Walter R. Gaddis Jr. Award nominations, the winner will be announced at the upcoming June meeting. And I did want to take a moment here, and I'm going to read over this award. The Walter R. Gaddis Jr. Award is presented annually to recognize a chapter member who has made significant contributions in the field of human resource management and in the promotion of the chapter. The award is given in honor and in memory of Walter R. Gaddis Jr., who was instrumental in the establishment and development of Kentucky's merit system. He served as the Commissioner of the Department of Personnel from 1961 to 1967, Personnel Director at the University of Kentucky Chandler Medical Center from 1974 to 1976, Personnel Officer for the newly revised state court system from 1976 to 1980, and held a number of other positions in state and federal government. Mr. Gaddis passed away January 25th, 1989 at the age of 70. So that's a little bit of background on the award. There are some criteria for that, and I'll read over that. The first is membership of the Kentucky chapter for 5 years. They must demonstrate or have a demonstration of initiative, dependability, and trustworthiness on behalf of the chapter. Has rendered services in upholding and promoting the purposes of the organization. Has shown outstanding leadership and involvement in activities for the betterment of the chapter's objectives. Has demonstrated outstanding performance in the field of public sector human resource management. And to note, current elected officers are ineligible for nomination. Our chairperson for the awards committee is Singer Buchanan, so please send your nominations to him. In addition, I do want to mention the upcoming June meeting. Our elections will be taking place, so please be considered involvement on the board of directors. Michelle will also be sending out those nomination forms. So to note, Larry Gillis will be cycling off the board from immediate past president. Renata Simmons will shift to immediate past president. I will transition to president, and that will of course leave the president-elect spot vacant. So all other board positions will be available for the annual election, including, as I just mentioned, the president-elect, secretary, treasurer, membership coordinator, and member at large. Galen Linville has accepted the nominations committee chair for the board, so those nominations will go to him. Lastly, I do want to note that planning for the annual spring conference of 2023 has began, and we're excited to certainly have that one and hope we have that one in person next year. So that is all I have, and back to you, Madam President.
All right, thank you, Grover Dale. And I don't know if he mentioned, but if you see on the screen right now, we're running with the theme of thriving on the HR path forward. So we kind of sometimes feel like we've kind of been at a standstill the past couple of years, but as Grover Dale said, we will finish out this conference as virtual, but next year our hopes is to get back together and have a huge 2023 annual conference. So we're going to be thriving on that HR path forward to keep our chapter moving forward and keep our HR members strong and flourishing. So thank you, Grover Dale. And our last updates will be next screen, Robbie. Yeah, so the 2022 Southern Region IPMA-HR conference will be in person this year. It will be in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. on May the 22nd through the 25th. I think you all should have received that email from Michelle. Registration has now opened. So be looking for that. Be looking, going ahead to get registered. I was on the website the other day. They don't have everything out yet either, but of course, you see, please check their website frequently as they highlight their program sponsors and speakers and things too. Don't think we have anything to report on national. So if that being said, that's all we have as far as our updates with our conferences. And do we have any other new business or questions in the Q&A box or comments from anyone? Nope. All right, if not, do we have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion has been moved by Rebecca Ogden and seconded by Michelle to adjourn. Again, we want to say thank you all for attending. And hopefully you learned something today and you've taken something that you've learned today to implement it into your HR agencies. Remember, self-care is very important, and we will stay in touch with us because we will have more information coming for our upcoming conference. And with there being no further business at the time, our first quarter business meeting for Kentucky Chapter IPMA-HR is now adjourned. Thank you all. Stay safe and be well. 12 o'clock on the dot.